Welcome to another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love, hosted by Richard Ostler. Our guest on today's podcast is my friend, Ryan Reese. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Just to give you a little bio on Ryan, we have been friends for about 3 or 4 years. We have a lot of mutual friends. Ryan is 26. He is a graduate of Highland High School, the class of 2010. I was the class of 1979, so that's like a lot of difference there. I don't even know if we sing the same song, the same school song. I won't even ask you that question.
I can't even remember the school song.
That's funny. We're going to our 40th mission reunion, Ryan, so I've got to probably remember it. Ryan served a mission in Florida and currently is finishing up a professional MBA at the University of Utah, graduates in July of 2019, works full-time, has a great job, is a manager of a business development team. Ryan, I usually don't announce people's sexual orientation, but I interview so many LGBTQ people that I just want our listeners to know Ryan's straight.
I am.
And he's going to talk about, part of the podcast will be talking about dating and having some of that not work out as expected. And just to give our listeners, this is a story that's not complete. So if we were interviewing Ryan, before he left on his mission, I think he would have thought life would have turned out different for him. He's 26, and I think if I asked you at age 18, would you be married at 26, and what the odds you'd be married, what percent would you have given you?
100.
100.
I mean, obviously, still very oblivious to life, but I'd say, 25 would be married for sure.
And so you're here 26 and not married. We're going to talk about that. And Ryan has had a few curveballs. He's an active member of the church, hopes to stay active, wants to have a temple wedding, but served a mission. We're going to talk about how that experience didn't turn out as planned. We're going to talk about some of your dating relationships that haven't turned out as planned, and sometimes getting inconsistent and conflicting information from God, and how you navigated that and how you're still hanging in there, believing things will work out. So this is kind of a story that's not, there's just more chapters to write, but I think it's good because I think a lot of our listeners are in the middle of their own stories and not all the chapters are figured out. So we may have you back on the podcast. You're too young to know Paul Harvey, but he used to say the rest of the story. And that was something when I grew up, he did interviews of sort of you tell a story and then there'd be a big pause and he'd come back and tell the rest of the story. So we're not able to tell the rest of the story today. Take us back to Highland High School. What were you doing if I'd met you in Highland High School? Were you a sports guy? Were you an academic guy? Were you a serious student, not good student?
Yeah, both sports and academics. Graduated with 3.9. So
it's a good GPA.
My parents were always hard on us for get good grades, but I played basketball, football, and baseball. So played all 3 sports. Was probably the best at baseball. That was my love. So
what position did you play?
I played first base.
Wow.
Which is funny because I'm like 5'10", 5'11". So played first base at Highland. Had great friends. I don't want to say I was like the popular kid, but I was up there. Had a good social life, and playing sports obviously helps in high school. Exactly. So,
Which sport was Highland best at in your year?
Football.
Football.
Sure. Yeah, they won. Well, I guess they won football and basketball, of course, the year after I graduated.
The class of 2011.
Yeah, our baseball team was terrible. So bad. But I loved it. I still loved
Did you
it.
bat right-handed or left-handed?
Right. Bat right, throw right.
And were you a pull hitter, a spray hitter? Did you hit home runs? Did you strike out a lot?
I can't hit a home run. Back then I was 140 soaking wet. I was just trying to bloop it over. I liked the Derek Jeter approach of blooping it to right field. Just get on base.
The opposite field single to right
there
field.
There you go, yeah.
Which is your favorite baseball team?
The Yankees.
I thought you'd say that. Now we're going to end this podcast.
Yeah,
because they're the
thanks
enemy.
for having me.
It was nice having you.
And that's it.
It's fun to talk sports. I'm a Dodger fan. Have we talked about that?
We have. We've always bested you in the old days, but it hasn't been relevant.
There's been so much pain around the Yankees and my love of the Dodgers.
Doesn't affect our friendship, though.
So if I had met you as a senior at graduating from Highland, tell me your dream. Were you planning on going on a mission?
Yeah, always plan on going on a mission. It was always expected of me, like many active LDS people, you're expected to go on a mission. So I honestly didn't really have time to think, am I going to go or not? It was just planted in my mind at a young age. Yeah, once I'm 19, I'm going to go on a mission.
What did you do for the year between Highland High School and going on your mission?
So
Did you have a full year? I don't even know that for sure.
Yeah, I went to the University of Utah as a freshman. I later transferred to BYU after my mission, but I did 1 year of school at the University of Utah. Spent a lot of that year heartbroken, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but that was a pretty crazy relationship with my first love from high school mixed with my parents telling me they're getting divorced. So it was a rough year.
Were these the first two curveballs that occurred in your life?
I'll give you my first curveball because it ties into everything and kind of my mission, which we'll get into. But
we're continuing with the baseball analogy, so it's curveballs.
Exactly. So the first curveball, to make a very long story short, was when I was 15 years old. It was my first day, actually, a sophomore year. I went to school. My skin and my eyes were jaundiced, just really yellow. I was super tired, and long story short, a couple nights later, I'm in the hospital.
Wow.
And I find out that my antibodies are killing my red blood cells.
It's
bad. It's
an
autoimmune disease. So if you run out of red blood cells,
I've heard that's bad.
You're probably not going to make it. So I was actually told by doctors that I was going to pass away through the night. And,
wow.
I was told that. My family was told that. And that's the first curveball. For sure, when you hear that at 15, especially as a sophomore.
Did this come on really dramatic, or is it a week of sort of a slow health decline, or was it just like boom?
It came immediately.
It's just this boom.
The first night they didn't tell me I was going to pass was that second night. So within less than 48 hours. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, with the way that my red blood cells were declining and how rapidly it was happening, I said, yeah, this is not looking good. Told my family they need to say goodbyes. But it's interesting, Dicko, because this is where my firm belief in God and my religion comes into play. Because when I was told that, I never thought that I was going to die, and neither did my parents.
Wow.
So my whole family kind of had this calming, like, no, they're wrong. So a long story short with this curveball is my dad gave me a blessing. Is a very specific blessing that I still remember him saying. You're going to be just fine. You're going to walk out of the hospital in a week.
Wow.
And, that just attests to the power of the priesthood, faith for sure. And our Heavenly Father truly helping me realize that I'm supposed to be on the earth for a reason. I have big things to do in this life. And so that experience now ties into so many different things of my life. But that took about a year for me to recover.
How long until you were sort of out of the woods? Was it a week? Was it that night? And then you were okay in the morning as far as your...
In the morning...
Was it touch and go for...
Yeah, that next morning was when they started to see a very slow increase of my numbers improving, that red blood cell count.
Wow.
And then I was able to go home a week later, like my dad's blessing had said.
What hospital were you in?
Primary Children's.
Primary Children's.
Mm-hmm, 15. And I was put on heavy dose of prednisone steroids. That was how I overcame this. But yeah, I'd say it took about 9 months to recover. The dose of my steroids was so high, we had to get special approval from the government to accept it.
Wow.
Gave me the moon face. When you have tons of prednisone.
What's the moon face? You get big?
Your face just retains water. So I actually remember going to Highland and seeing people that I grew up with, and once I went back to school after like a month, they didn't know who I was. So I was unrecognizable. Cause I was a skinny kid. Like I said, I was 140 soaking wet. So I had this huge face. And then with the amount of steroids that was so high, it was attacking my bones. So I couldn't really walk and I couldn't play sports. So overall, it took, like I said, about a year to recover. Totally fine. And yeah, that's kind of the first.
It's a huge curveball.
Huge curveball. People always ask, like, what was it like when you were told, hey, you're going to die? And it's crazy because I didn't freak out. I had that calming feeling, and I truly believe that was from God. telling me like, yeah, you're gonna survive and you have big things to do in this life. So
That's cool.
I always fall back on that with my faith.
I love that, blessing your Father God and the confidence that this wasn't your plan.
Absolutely.
We're glad you're here.
Me too.
So talk about more curveballs. A couple curveballs happened with your mission experience. You went and with a high school girlfriend.
Right. So the high school girlfriend, dated for years, like first love, right? The first real relationship, or what you think is a relationship. And long story short there, I caught her cheating on me with my then best friend in high school.
Wow.
So that
You're
was
a senior?
I was a senior.
Or just graduated?
We were just graduated. I think I was just about to start at the U. My
and
freshman
were you two
year.
talking marriage and stuff like that? Or was it just a real...
I think so. I mean,
think so.
I'm 18, right? Now I look back at it, but it's kind of like a movie. Like I walked in on that cheating happening.
Wow.
We won't get too explicit there, but as bad as you could imagine.
Nothing could prepare you for that.
Right. Especially where I was like, I didn't know that you did that stuff. And you see it with my high school best friend. So that immediately ruined that relationship mixed with my high school best friend relationship. Yeah. And then it's like a movie too, because I found out the next day within hours, my parents told me that they were going to get divorced. Wow. So those are two back-to-back hard-hitting things. A lot of heartbreak immediately. And this is like before I'm even about to start my first year at college, which is a crazy experience in itself. So
talk about the heartbreak and how you got over it and what your 28-year-old, 26-year-old self would say to your 18-year-old self now.
Yeah. So how I got over it, I mean, it was hard. We all know that feeling of broken heart, especially your first love, the first time, and you're so young, you haven't felt that. So honestly, what I did was just threw myself into school, and I tried to focus on things that I could control. So I was hanging out with a lot of friends. I was working, and I'd really just try to find escapes. And it took a while, don't get me wrong, but what truly helped was I realized that I was going on a mission in less than a year. And I knew that if I could just focus on getting ready for a mission, that once I actually got out on my mission, that I wouldn't have to think about it. And so truly, I didn't really heal from all those things until I was on my mission, because I was too busy to think of it. And, when you're on your mission, I went to Miami, Florida, Spanish speaking, and it felt like I was in Cuba. Like there was no English, everything was in Spanish. So I was just so focused on that and felt like I was thrown into a different culture, a different country. Even though I was in the US, Miami is just a crazy place that, that's kind of how I got over it. I disappeared.
How much did everybody, I think, looks inwards when bad things happen around them and they think this is my fault. Did you do much of that with either your parents' divorce or an unfaithful girlfriend?
I didn't with my parents' divorce, because I had seen at a young age the problems in the marriage. That divorce was in my opinion, there's tons of reasons, right? But one huge reason for me was just lack of communication and a little bit of dishonesty.
And your parents are now remarried. I guess we could, later in the podcast, we may come back to that.
Yeah, they got remarried in 2014. So 4 years later, that's crazy in itself. But yeah, they're happily married, living holiday.
So you didn't take any responsibility for that. I guess you kept that in your mind, your logical mind, and said, what's been going on here has been going on for a while, and that's not my fault.
Right. So I never felt blame that way. I probably second guessed myself with that first girlfriend. You always wonder, like, what did I do? But not really. I mean, we're so young back then. I don't even think of it anymore. So
good.
Yeah.
I admire you moving on. So take us to your mission call opening. Did you do that privately? Did you do it?
I had all the friends.
All the friends over?
Back when you're 18 and you have a lot of friends. They all came over, opened the call. I remember I was just terrified. And it's funny because LeBron just announced that he was going to take his talents to South Beach. And so
in the famous ESPN interview,
right, to go play for the Miami Heat. And so we actually had this big board. There's like this big paper that hung up from the ceiling to the floor, and it said, "Where will Ryan take his talents?" And so it's really ironic that it was Fort Lauderdale, Florida is the mission, but I was in Miami the whole time.
Did anybody guess that mission on the board?
No one guessed that mission. I think the closest was like Orlando, but yeah,
Wow.
Ironic. So went to Miami.
So you went to Miami. Talk about your mission.
Yeah. So my mission, I will be the first to tell you, was probably the most unenjoyable experience I've ever had in my life. Now to preface this, I know missions are hard. I knew missions were hard going in. I knew it was going to be tough. But I felt like I was prepared with a lot of emotional pain, so I could get through the emotional things. I played sports and did hard things physically, so I wasn't worried about that. I was in good shape, so, things like that. I don't think anything can prepare you for the spiritual, emotional, and physical just tiredness of a mission. But for my mission specifically, it was so demanding that I was not sane. So the rules were so strict. I guess that's probably better to say. It was such a strict mission that it was truly unenjoyable and miserable. Now, don't get me wrong. I had wonderful experiences. I met amazing people. It wasn't all bad, but I really didn't enjoy it.
I like you being honest. I think that's a good thing. And I think that that's something I've always been struck about you, is being honest.
Too honest, honestly.
And I think your generation's wired for honesty and authentic, real communication. And I think it helps us connect better as we're authentic and real. Do you feel your mission had extra rules, or do you think your mission was just a typical mission? It was just a change.
From speaking with people, it sounded a little extra. So, for example, well, I guess to preface this, I was the really obedient missionary. You might not think that if you met me now, but I truly was like up at 6, follow all the rules. I never strayed or broke rules at all, ever. So some of the rules were, we couldn't have any food with members unless a non-member was there. That's pretty common. Can't listen to any music except Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and you can't listen to the Disney version, so you can't rock out to Alex Boyer doing the Lion King song. I'm trying to think of other things. A lot of the communication with family, you only had 30 minutes for email each week. When you called home for Mother's Day and Christmas, you had an hour. And it was just very strict. I remember my Thanksgiving and Christmases were terrible because we couldn't eat Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, anything, because we couldn't find non-members to eat with.
Wow.
So I literally had to show up at a member's house, have them make, these people are poor and they're making a huge table of food, and I have to say sorry. And that was something that our mission president strictly enforced. And I'm sure I'm forgetting other things, but we actually had Elder Ballard come, an apostle. He came and spoke at our mission when I was about 7 months in, and he told my mission president, your rules are so strict that your missionaries are not going to be sane. And he didn't change anything.
Wow.
So I know it might sound like, oh yeah, it's just a mission, buck up, but we actually did have an apostle say, like, your rules are pretty extreme. Give a little more freedom. And it just didn't happen. And that, I believe, negatively affect my mission for how just my overall feelings about the experience. For sure.
It sounds like the issue, you can be obedient. It just was unhealthy.
Correct.
So talk about how did you serve? Talk our listeners if you served a full mission or what happened.
Yeah, so this circles back to that 15-year-old experience. So I was about a year into my mission, and I woke up again. Eyes were jaundiced, skin was jaundiced, and I knew immediately, the sickness is why I had to serve stateside. It was a concern for the church to begin with. So a very long story short, it wasn't as serious this time around. I was never on the verge of, hey, you might pass away. But I did have to go home. I spent 4 nights in the hospital being monitored
in Salt Lake,
in Miami before I came home. And then you can imagine how my mother felt, going through this sickness again by myself. So I came back home and was not released as a missionary. the expectation before I even got home from family, from my mission president, was, you're coming back out. It was non-negotiable. I don't hold this against my family, but I do remember my mom saying, no, you're going to go back out. And so the goal was to have me go back out within 1 to 2 transfers, which would be 6 to 12 weeks. But pulling that prior experience when I was 15, it's not realistic. Even though it wasn't as serious, it just wasn't realistic. But you have the Utah culture pressure to go on a mission. I remember my best friend, he was told by my own bishop, hey, you can't see Ryan because we need him to go back out, and like, you just can't have any influences or anything. So I was like isolated for the most part while I was here. And it's interesting that the church, my leaders, the bishop, the stake president, wanted me to fly under the radar, as if it was shameful, as if I could control this, which I couldn't. I mean, I almost died from
Very
this.
shaming. Yeah.
So
shaming's the right word.
I actually went back out after, I think it was 6 weeks, which should not have happened because I was not up to it, but I was just so determined. I mean, you know me, Dicko. I don't give up. I don't quit. And when I have my mind on something, I'm going to do it. So these other influences help me to get my mind focused of, okay, I'm going to go out regardless. I'm going to do mind over matter. So I went back out to Florida, and I was there for another month. I just kept having issues. Like, I was in and out of the hospital still, of them taking numbers and monitoring me. I had no energy. I just couldn't do it. And so they finally said, okay, this is it. You're going to go home. Let's get you healed up. And that took probably 3 months after I finally came home that second time to get better. So again, it wasn't as serious.
Did people talk about you going back out after 3 months?
No, people don't talk about going back out. They only remember coming home, right?
So the pressure to go back out wasn't the same as when you came home.
Correct.
I mean, relief is probably the word. I just feel like, what a relief that you've done everything you can here, and now you're able to sort of move on.
Right. So I'm happy I went back out, even though I really shouldn't have, because I know that I gave it my all. I didn't quit. And I've never lived with regret or saying like, man, I could have done it. Like, I know that I couldn't have done it. And for whatever reason, God called it short. And, had me have that sickness again. I haven't faced this red blood cell sickness since, and doctors don't think it will ever happen again. It's truly a freak thing. So
do you think the stress of the mission brought it out, or do you think it was just coincidence?
It's possible. They don't know why exactly it happens. There's no rhyme or reason. They say it can contribute to it, but I mean, I've been way stressed and depressed at different times after my mission. Nothing's happened. So who knows? I truly don't know.
What advice do you have for people when we come across a leader that we just don't resonate with, or we feel like is a little off, or we see the imperfections of a church leader, and we still believe in the church and want to be a part of the church, but we have a leader we just don't quite connect with, or quite don't feel as 100% aligned, and we don't really have any standing to say anything about it? Any advice for our listeners when people are in that situation?
Yeah, a quote that came to my mind was, listen to the message and not the messenger. So remember, I mean, there's people in the church who you're just really not going to like. It's just life. There's people you work with who you're not going to like. But just remember your values and your faith. So if you are cemented in the faith, in the LDS faith specifically, don't let one person screw that up, because they're just the messenger. They aren't the actual message. So I'm really good at that. I know some people aren't, because I'm just confident in who I am and what I believe. So I would say just do your best to remember your faith and your values, and to ignore other people who really bug you.
That's a great answer. Did your testimony change after this experience? So if I took a testimony meter up to you and got an 8.9 for when you left on your mission, and now you've had sort of an unusual and at times traumatic mission experience, and I took my testimony meter up to you, would it have gone up or down?
Not at all. It would have been the exact same, because I just felt like God was guiding me. I wasn't blaming the church or God for this. Like, I knew it was just part of the process and the plan. So it didn't change at all.
I admire that, because sometimes when people go through difficult experiences where leaders have maybe not done their best, then it's hard to sometimes separate that from the testimony of the church and testimony of God in Christ.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that sustains you. It gives you a framework to continue to navigate that if that happens again in your life. That's very helpful. How did you handle cultural expectations now? I don't know what they call early release missionaries back in 2012 or 2013. Culturally, did you feel judged and shamed and lesser, or were you just able to kind of not be bothered by that?
At first, yes. I'd say judged, and there's the whispers and the murmurs of people. Why is he home? It's only been a year. I think that's more people just being curious of what happened rather than being like, oh, he must have been a bad person. No one ever thought that. People knew it was medically. Specifically within my ward and like my friends and family, they were all aware of what happened back when I was 15. And so once they realized, oh, it was the same similar thing, I didn't face that shame or, that cultural, hey, why are you home type feeling. So that's good. I lucked out on that part. I think I felt that way for about 3 months, and then I got over it. It was gone.
Do you remember some helpful things that friends or priesthood leader, family members said during that time?
Ooh, that's just don't care what other people think. You did your best. And I actually remember my sister and my mom both telling me, if Christ was right next to you, he'd say, well done, my good and faithful servant. I'm so proud of you.
That's
and
cool.
So I think that helped me to overcome and be like, yeah, I do feel like Christ would say that. So I was able to move on and now move on with my life. I have bigger things to do, I believe, in my life than just serve a mission.
Did you think it would change your future dating relationship when whoever you were dating found out you didn't serve 2 years that would think different of you?
No, because I don't want to marry someone or date someone who thinks that. I mean, that's not the type of person I'm trying to be with. So no, it's the short answer.
Our listeners, that's a great answer. That is a great answer, because you just answered the question with a positive statement that if someone did think like that, then that's not the person I want to be with.
Absolutely.
What a great answer. And I look behind that answer as someone who's very confident in who they are and what they want, and is not approaching a relationship based on fear, but faith. And fear would say, I'm different now, and someone may judge me. And faith would say, the person I'm going to marry is not going to judge me for that.
Right.
And I don't want to be with someone who would.
And I believe that.
I know you believe that. Any other thoughts you want to share with our listeners about your mission, coming home, and what we can do to help be kind to other early release missionaries?
Sure. So I'd say it's okay if you didn't like your mission. When people say, oh, it's the best 2 years, they're lying. It's not going to be the best 2 years of your life. I think it's the best. We always hear the best 2 years for your life. 100%. I'm so grateful I went through those hard times. So grateful for the experience, but it's not the best 2 years. It's okay if you didn't like it. And then as far as moving on, if you're early release or you decided...
Let's stay on that for a second.
Okay.
What would you say to your sons and daughters about serving a mission? What would you say to them?
I would say exactly that. It was so good for me. It helped me grow up. It helped transform me to become the man I am today. But it's absolutely your choice if you want to go. Don't listen to other people. Don't have other people say, oh yeah, you need to go. You're going to go on a mission. I'm going to say it's 100% up to you. Whatever you decide is best for you and your heart, I will support.
Do you feel like there were people on your mission you really helped in that year of hard work?
For sure. I was blessed with a lot of baptisms for sure. And some are still active. So cool. Who knows if I didn't knock on that door where they'd be. So I'd say yes.
Good. And then now I forgot where our second point was. I love what you said about your mission, and I love the honesty of that. And I think it's just real. I think it's good to be real and say missions are hard. and people are going to have different experiences. And when we get home, we're going to remember the good days, and that's going to sustain us. But there were some really hard days.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the way you just did the best you can. And I love what your mom and sister said to you. And now you move forward. So, any other things you were two things, and I interrupted you. So, is there anything
else? You just
else?
said advice to give people for members not to judge people who come home, and for missionaries not to feel shame. Just know that truly God does have a plan for everything. I think things happen how they're supposed to happen. So if you don't want to go on a mission, am I okay to say it's okay if you really don't want to go? And if you come home, please don't have shame. It's all part of the plan, and it's okay. And it's easier said than done to just say, don't care what other people think. But if you can just focus on your relationship with God and not other people's relationships with you, then you'll be fine. You'll make it through, and it will all pass. It always passes with time.
I think that's good advice. I invite all of our listeners to go on a mission, to consider a mission. But if your personal revelation is different, I remember a couple men in my YSA ward looking at me and just saying, Bishop, I feel my path is different. And I at first wanted to remind them of their priesthood responsibility, but they knew that. And I felt pressed just to listen and say, tell me why you feel that way. And I really got, in both cases, a really strong feeling that they were acting on their personal revelation. This wasn't about dodging something hard or not being committed to the gospel. This is just about a feeling of their path. And I felt to honor that. And a part of my was just I felt they were more likely to stay as members of the church if I just didn't make my relationship with them all about are they going on a mission or not. Like I was trying to fill some quota or trying to deliver the expectation that was kind of around them from their parents and family. So I like that advice. So you come home from your mission. It takes you a while to kind of get your feet. You seem to be really good at moving forward. Talk about dating again. And just for the sake of our listeners, I think one of the things that Ryan teaches me and in this podcast is you can control some things. And those things that you're able to control, like your academic excellence and your career and your financial stability, are really things that you've been able to control.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sort of, you put in the work. I think you're continue to be fit. I know you go to the gym and you can control that. But then there's other parts. And for some people, that may be harder to control. It's something for you that comes and you're able to dedicate yourself. But then there's other things that are harder to control, like finding your companion. And so I think that's one of the things that's helpful for our listeners is just how you're navigating both of those worlds. So talk about dating.
Sure.
So we've gone through girl number one that was, we're going to call her unfaithful.
Sure, we'll go with that.
And hopefully she's got on with her life and has have a good life. But now you come back and you start dating again.
Start dating again. I feel like it's actually serious by that post-mission is what it's referred to, that post-mission dating life. So my next girlfriend, it was a year after I came home. I'm 21, where I came home early. I was 20. And this girl that I always had a crush on, but you never thought you could get, right? That's usually how it goes. And long story short there, I fell very hard for her, and we were very serious. Weren't talking about marriage because I didn't, now at this point in my life, I realized that I didn't want to just come home and get married. My mission president, when I actually went home, said, all right, so like the next plan is to get married. And I just looked him in the eye and said, no, it's definitely not. I realized I didn't want to be broke. I didn't want to be broke. I didn't want to be going to school and be married and then like have a kid.
Was he taken back that his...
A little bit, but he knows that I'm honest.
So like direct.
I'm blunt. Like I'm a blunt person. All my friends, family know I'm blunt and direct. So it wasn't part of the plan to get married with her, but I did fall so hard. I was infatuated with her.
It's a great thing. It's a great
good thing. Yeah, great thing. That was a brutal breakup because that was actually emotional cheating. So the first girl was physical cheating. And let me tell you, emotional is way, way harder.
Yeah, help our listeners understand that.
Yeah, so physical cheating's, actually the act, someone being physical with another person. For me, when you know that's happening, it's easy to shut it down.
It's just over.
I can turn on bitter Justin Timberlake songs and never talk to you again. You know, that's my cope method for that. Emotional cheating, though, it's when someone's talking with other people or old boyfriends and just kind of stringing you along. And so emotionally, it really gets at you because you're realizing, well, they're not cheating on me physically, but the wear and tear and the psychological and physical, or excuse me, emotional feelings, that is brutal. I think emotional pain is way worse than physical pain. So that ended, and it was hard because that was what I thought I wanted. We had a really good love story. We always said it was like living a country song. It just went so well.
I love country music.
I love country. It went so well until it didn't. And so that was tough. That was through college. My parents are still divorced now at this time. And now that I'm home from my mission, it's hitting me. It's actually becoming a reality that my parents were divorced because I blocked it out when I was gone.
It's honest.
So there's this mix of my parents' divorce, this girl who I was head over heels with, truly just breaking my heart. And I just transferred to BYU. Dicko, I don't fit in at BYU. That's, I don't know. I look back, I'm like, why did I go here? But it was a very hard time. It was really lonely. And this is probably when I started really facing depression and depressive times. So that's what stemmed from that relationship. Now, guys, I wish her the best. She's married, has a couple kids, and I have no hard feelings. I smile at the relationship, but it was tough. And I'd say it took me 2 to 3 years to fully get to that point.
Do you think it was harder to recover from an emotional situation like that versus the physical cheating?
100%.
Why?
Emotionally,
maybe it's because it just drained you in the relationship until the relationship ended. So it's not like you ended the relationship in a good spot.
And then you look back at, well, were they doing this the whole time? Was this whole relationship a lie? Were they lying to my face the whole time? Whereas physical, it seems like it's just one act and done, even though it might lead up over time, but you kind of just visually see it as one act and now the relationship's over. But when it's emotional, you wonder how long and if anything was real. And that just really starts to get at your head and your heart.
Thanks for being so honest. I think this helps our listeners, and I think it's a sign that you're pretty strong and confident in who you are. You can talk about these difficult things.
Yeah.
So talk about, it doesn't surprise me now that I've talked to people that something like that would take a couple years to get over. Why? Just because I think you were pretty strong, confident guys, worked through things. Saying out loud that it took me 2 years to get over this is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of reality of how difficult a breakup can be. So talk to our listeners that are going through a breakup and sort of need some hope or understanding why it's going to take some time.
Yeah, especially when you fall hard and you're young and marriage starts to become, it's ahead. You're getting closer to where it's more serious when you're dating. When you break up, it takes time because, that person's taking a part of your life. And you give up so much in a relationship and you dedicate so much time and so much emotion to another person. And, you fall in love with someone and then that's just ripped away. That's going to be very painful. It's going to take time, especially if you were really invested. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. My advice is to find an outlet or something that you can control and combat that heartache. So for me, it was fitness, which we kind of got into, and I just immediately focused on my career and money, investing, finances, which I'm sure we'll get into all that, but focus on what you can control because you can't control the breakup. It's not your fault. Obviously, there's reasons the breakup happened, but you really can't control another person and how they feel and what they do. So just focus on what you can control, and over time it will pass.
Talk about your relationship with God during this time in the church. Did it change going through a difficult breakup?
It still hadn't changed yet. I knew that through those past experiences, God has been there for me, right? I felt like he saved my life, and God hasn't done anything to really let me down to this point. And so my testimony was still strong, and my relationship with God was still great. Obviously, there's a little bit of anger. I think that's normal to be angry at God sometimes. That's totally normal, but nothing catastrophic. I was still attending church. I still had a good relationship with God at this point.
As a side note, why was BYU not your thing?
I am is it a square peg in a round hole? Is that the terminology you give me, Dicko? I don't fit Utah culture. I don't fit Mormon culture. And by that, I mean, we talk about the cookie cutter Mormon, where people have this image of what Mormons are. I'm not at all like that at all. I'm the person who most people say, wait, you're Mormon? And it's not that I'm doing bad things or, like going to parties and just being an outwardly bad example for other people's eyes. It's just, I conduct myself differently. I don't talk about the church. I don't love going to church. It's actually really hard for me to go to church. I'm not begging someone to come to church with me or, hey, you should check out Mormonism. I don't pressure anyone to become a Mormon. I'm just like, hey, you do you, I'll do me. I've always hated the pressure of Utah culture to live and act a certain way as a member of the church. And I'm just very self-aware and self-deprecating and confident in who I am, that I know that's 100% not me. It just, that does not fit me at all. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's helpful for our listeners that feel like you do, and you're still in.
Still in.
We'll talk more about that. So did you feel more of that cookie cutter thing at BYU?
100%.
Than you did in Salt Lake County?
Well, you walk around the BYU campus and it's all these white dudes who are also 5'11", and everyone wants to be better than everyone. And when you go on dates, dating life for me there was hard because girls think, like, if I can find another one of you with better hair, better teeth, better this and that, because I'm surrounded by Mormons.
Wow.
So that was my experience. I know the stereotype is, go to BYU for a semester, you're going to get married. But for me, it was really hard dating there because that kind of just seemed to be the vibe I got from a lot of girls. There's a lot of one and done dates. A lot.
It's really interesting. There's just so many that there's just, and you can never measure up to just everybody's just to be the perfect guy.
100%.
There'll always be somebody stronger, taller, whatever,
always,
physical attribute.
Always. And keep in mind, this is 2014, 15. Instagram's blown up. Truly believe Instagram has negatively affected that dating life for a lot of people my age and younger. When you see all these people posting their best pictures and the fun things they do, it creates a narrative in everyone's head, mine included, that you're like, yeah, I could find someone better because I'm surrounded by it and I see it every day on social media. So I also think that was a factor in my case as well, and still is. Did
you graduate from BYU?
Graduated from BYU.
In what?
So this is funny. I always had the business mindset. So that was my plan, was to do accounting, finance, something along those lines. Except at BYU, you have to apply to the Marriott School of Business once a year. I didn't get in that first year. So I was actually working on a Spanish minor as well. It's like, I don't want to be here longer than I have to. I knew I was going to do my MBA eventually. I was like, I'm going to just flop my majors and minors. So I actually graduated in Spanish.
I love that.
And then I double minored in business management and international business. And it's funny because I don't even remember how to say napkin in Spanish. So yeah, it's funny. And I only served a year on my mission. So goes to say,
I think that's a sign of this faith versus fear principle, is you had enough faith in you and your future that you said, I can just finish at BYU.
Right.
And I know I'm going to get an MBA and I know I'm going to be successful. So I'm not going to make a fear-based decision where I have to. So I think that's a sign of confidence in who you are.
True. And then this goes again back to the control. I've never had fear or doubt that I'm going to be successful, especially in a career and with finances. And so I just didn't really stress that. And I know that that's a huge worry for people, but I think God's blessed me to not have that fear and that stress in my life. I've just always known that I'm going to be okay.
So you graduated in BYU in what year?
That was 2016.
So that's 3 years ago this year.
Yep.
And talk about your career.
Yeah. So I work for an IT cybersecurity company. I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. I still don't know what I want to do. But I ended up at a company that my sister used to work at, and it's as a business development representative. The role is setting up meetings for account executives that I covered the Midwest. So people in Iowa, Minnesota, Ohio, just kind of that area. So what you do is you schedule demos on site with big enterprise corporations to meet with those account executives. So that was my first job. And kind of to get to now where I'm at, I came in, and my boss, who's been now one of my biggest blessings, I came in and I said, well, he asked what I want to do. You know, what's your plan here? And I said, well, I want to take your job. Actually, not I want to, like, I'm going to take your job one day. That's the naive and just way overconfident personality I have. Like if a 24-year-old came and told me that, I would laugh and maybe smack them in the face, right? But I'm lucky because they saw this. There's always been this fire in me to attack my dreams and chase those goals. And so I ended up now, I did that for a year, and now I manage one of those enterprise business development teams. It's so hard to get that position. I work with people who are in their mid-30s,
So
the other
people
managers.
that report to you are older.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everyone on my team's older than me. Married, kids. There's only a couple that aren't married, but they're, married and kids. And it's crazy because here I am, 26, single. Everyone's older than me. The other managers are all, mid-30s. And I have people texting me in the morning asking, if they can take the day off or have time off, or they're going to be sick. And I'm just like, wait a sec, this kind of seems surreal. Cool. Just with where I'm at and my age and what I'm accomplishing. And it's truly been a blessing. But I believe it's something I can control. So that's why I focused on my career that way.
Thanks for sharing some of that. Sometimes when I'm a hiring manager, I look at ability versus confidence, and you have both, is my feeling. I've always felt like I would look first for ability because I felt like sometimes confidence would be under someone's ability or over. But I think you're matched. And I think a lot of people probably have more ability sometimes than their confidence. They're underconfident compared to their ability. And I think your confidence matches your ability. And I think that's a great alignment that helps you.
Thanks, Dicko. I appreciate that.
So I want to circle back to your journey with the church and your ongoing dating.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So this second major relationship ended, and it took you a couple years to sort of emotionally get back. And I think it's good for our listeners to realize that it just takes time.
Oh, yeah.
And we can measure physical trauma by wounds on the outside of our body. But if there was a way to measure the emotional trauma that came into your life through no fault of your own, it's pretty high, and it takes a while. And I think that's okay, just to give ourselves permission to take it slow and know that it's going to take some time. So talk about the next relationship.
Yeah, I know you like my fitness, and now I've taken control of that as well. So we'll go to the next relationship. This is right after I graduated BYU, or maybe right before, but I dated a girl for a little bit, and this one wasn't as serious, but the key takeaway, which is one of the greatest blessings, is this girl, when she dumped me, told me one thing that she really didn't like was that I didn't have abs and that I wasn't like this ripped dude.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
glad my wife didn't say that.
Crazy, right? I mean, that shows right there that I dodged a bullet, but I immediately took that, and it initially started as like getting the revenge body, right? Going to the gym, dieting. But that was truly a moment that changed my life, because now I'm very into fitness. It's
even
not,
though you're not that's not the the right reason to end a relationship. You took it as a positive instead of just going to use it to improve myself.
Before it made me mad, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I didn't have abs. And so I decided to take fitness serious because I realized it's what I could control. In breakups, again, like I said, focus on what you can control. And so it first started as like, yeah, I'm going to get those abs. And it turned into a love. It turned into a mental health. I work out for my mental health 100%. It makes my days better. I feel like I'm achieving goals and I'm doing a very hard thing that a lot of people consistently don't want to do. And of course, getting abs is a benefit. It's a side effect of that. But it's been a huge blessing because now I define myself as someone who just loves fitness and the endorphins it brings. And I'm not that guy on Instagram who's posing with my shirt off or posting, stories of me lifting in the gym. I'm not that at all. People are like pleasantly surprised when I take my shirt off, and that's just how I like it, right? I'm not showboaty about it, and I don't want to be. That's just not me. But it has blessed my life.
How long did you have to be dedicated to the gym before it just became a habit that you love? Because I think that might be helpful for people who are saying, I've got to do what Ryan's talking about. Yeah. I got to get to the gym.
To get to the gym, because I didn't know what I was doing, it took a year to actually get to the point where I was like, I love this. And it took going to the gym like 5 times a week and looking like a fool, not knowing what I was doing for a year to get there. And then as far as like getting my dream body, I guess you could say, of where the muscles and the abs come, I had to diet very, very, very hardcore for 4 months.
Wow.
So it takes a lot of discipline and dedication, but it is something that we all can control. We can control what we put into our mouths.
What time of day do you work out?
Now I'm really blessed where I work a salary job. I can lift during lunch. So I do intermittent fasting. If people know what that is, we're going to get into that. And then I lift fully fasted for 16 hours during lunch, and then I finally eat at 1 p.m.
Wow.
So I'm pretty into it. It's hard, but once you get there, it's rewarding for sure.
Talk about we kind of touched on girl number 3 then.
Yeah, that's all we need to take away. It gave me
talk
that
about your
love.
Most recent relationship that ended.
Yeah, so this one.
I don't know if we're skipping anybody.
No, well, as far as like serious things, no. I mean, I've told you I crunched the numbers of how many different girls I've dated from when I got home from my mission until now, and I think it was like 170 something, and so a lot of dates. And you want to say, Ryan, you're too picky, but that's just not the case. Like, things just haven't happened. But I do know what I want, and I refuse to settle. So just a lot of dating. But sorry, to get into the relationship you asked about, this was actually with a non-member. This most recent one about a year ago. And I think we're all a little skeptical a little bit when you're LDS and you date someone who's not of the same faith. But I'm so open-minded, and I just have a different testimony and belief in the church that I didn't ever see her as a non-Mormon. It just never crossed my mind. I just saw her as a daughter of God, and she was religious. I believe she was Presbyterian, told her family she didn't want to do that, so she's kind of going through her own faith journey. So with that one, I've been through a lot of hard things. It takes a toll when you go on 170 something dates and things just don't happen. And these aren't just dates. Those are 170 different people. So it gets hard and it wears on you. And I've had these emotional cheating, physical cheating, some messed up things said by past girls that I really made it known to God once I started dating this girl and started to like her and realized it was what I wanted, that, hey, if this is wrong, please just tell me now before I get into this emotional mess again. Because I felt like I was so emotionally spent with past relationships and dating that I was just like, please, Heavenly Father, if this is going to go nowhere, just please, like, don't let me catch the feels. So this girl, how we met, truly was like through God, honestly. Is my best friend's wife now. She ran into her at the gym at the University of Utah at 6 a.m. I only go to that gym on Saturdays because I go with them at like 10 a.m. So it's a crazy thing. And her name's Serena. She invited this girl to come to gym Saturday with us on those Saturday 10 a.m.s, and we hit it off immediately. And by just getting to know her and being with her, I realized this is exactly the type of person I want. It's what I've been praying for. It's what I've been looking for. And we just started going way fast. I've seen her every single day. We're doing things every day. And during this whole process, I was constantly praying to God of, is this right? Am I supposed to do this? Should I cut it off now? And I always had the reaffirmation of, yes, Ryan, you need to give your heart. You need to go for it. Like, this is not like she's it, obviously. Couldn't tell that quick, but like, you need to go all in. That was the response that I had, was go all in with this girl. And so our relationship really became built kind of around God, because she was really religious and had a good relationship with God. And she ended up breaking up with me after several months. And she cited the reason for the breakup as when she was praying to God, it didn't feel right, and that he was saying no. All while simultaneously I'm getting the answer of, yes, you need to do this. You need to give your heart. That's really, really hard.
It's really hard.
Really hard when you have two people getting, praying to the same God, but getting two different answers.
It's really hard.
And I feel spiritually mature enough where I know how God answers my prayers and what to listen for. And there's no doubt that I still got that answer of, yes, you need to do it. But she undeniably, she was like, I absolutely have the answer of no. So this started deep depression, not as much from the relationship, but I felt like my relationship with God was so damaged. And as I expressed before, I don't fit in the Mormon culture. And so going to church seemed unbearable. It was really hard for me to have the desire to go to church. It was really hard for me to pray. And it was just difficult. And I spent a lot of time talking with you, Dicko, because you're just my mentor, of trying to navigate all of this. And I remember you told me to go to the temple, because that's one thing that keeps me in the LDS church, is the desire for a temple marriage and the things I felt in the temple. And so I'm assuming you want me to tell this story, right? Okay. So I remember going to the temple probably 3-4 weeks after this breakup, and it was the first time I'd been in the temple in probably a year and a half, and I broke down. I broke down in the celestial room, and I was a mess. Luckily, nobody was in there, because I did initiatories and then went up to the celestial room. I didn't do a session. I had these feelings from God that I needed to keep trying, and that it's going to be okay, but that like it wasn't over, and that I needed to reach out. And when I'm praying in the celestial room, I'm praying for confirmation that it's over. I just want that closure, and I wasn't getting that. So, I don't need to go into the details, but we had different encounters where we rekindled at the wedding of my best friend, and that wife introduced us and started dating more again. And this girl just broke my heart again. So it was just a dragged out process. And
just so our listeners heard that, I mean, that took so much courage to walk back into the pain, the potential pain. I remember meeting with you and thinking this is one of the hardest roads I've ever seen anybody walk, because I knew how hard it was for you to go through that breakup and then to sort of open that door for that same type of pain to potentially happen, and then have it happen again, even after these impressions were God, were very difficult for me to know what to say to you and know what was going on here. So that's, from my perspective, just a very unusual situation. So yeah, keep telling our listeners.
Yeah. So absolutely 100%. It was really hard to navigate. I wanted to be done. my friends who know me, who might be listening to this, know if it's over, I don't talk to you ever again. I turn on those bitter JT songs and I don't talk to you again. And so I kept opening back up to this girl because I felt like God was telling me to. So that was the answer I was getting, even though we'd already broken up. And so when you open up and you have these impressions continually that you need to give this a try, you need to go for it, you need to open up to her and lean into the pain. Don't run away from the pain, lean right into it and face it. And then you still get brokenhearted. That really, really threw me in. It damaged my relationship with God, 100%. It damaged my relationship with the LDS church. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't pray for a long time, probably several months. I just couldn't do it. I tried and I couldn't because I was just so let down by God. And so this probably went on for 6 months, I'd say, of just really being hurt by God. And
it sounds like every other relationship is just you've been hurt by the person. This relationship, you're hurt by the person and God.
Correct.
And you've got and I honor that pain you felt from God. I think 5 years ago I would say, well, you shouldn't feel that way towards God. But then as I hear what's happened in your life, I would say it's okay to feel that way. And because I think that's part of helping someone to acknowledge the pain they feel and not unjustify it.
Yeah. So it's crazy because I've been in worse scenarios than just this relationship, and I still remain faithful with God. So I don't know if this was just the straw on the camel's back, but I was just broken. And it took a while, and I can now say kind of where things started to turn around, because I know you loved this story. But for me, I don't feel close to God at church. I feel close to God at this place called Heaven, which is west of Utah Lake. That's where I go shooting and mudding with my friends. It's just middle of nowhere. I feel close to God in the mountains, just middle of nowhere pretty much, where I can just meditate in the peace and surrounded by the mountains. And so and the other place now that I feel peace is the temple. That's why it was so hard for me when you got me to go to the temple last May to go to have that conversation, because it's just a sacred place for me. It's a place that I feel close to God. And so I finally built courage to go back to the temple, which was the Ochre Mountain Temple that I went to in May, and had all those, those answers. And there's this church across the street from there that I park in, and I just have very honest conversations with God. I do that probably every couple months. I haven't since I went to the temple, just because I've been so hurt. But I finally went up there shortly after the new year, and I remember praying to God and just breaking down and saying, Heavenly Father, you let me down. And the response that I got was, I know. So I know. And that was crazy, because I always view God as this, he's always right? He doesn't have any faults. It's kind of how I viewed him. And it was this reconciliation for me of him saying, I know it let you down.
I'm just so touched. I have tears in my eyes thinking of this God that we love, that's human and can feel emotion. I think sometimes we paint a God that is so godlike that he doesn't feel, that he doesn't hurt, because we think those are imperfections, but I don't think those are. And you know better than I do what God said to you that day, but I love his answer to you, I know. And I think what a healing thing. Talk more about why he said that and what was going on here as you've reflected on that moment. And I love the word you use, Ryan, reconciliation, I think, because I sense it reconciled you back with God.
100%. The reason it was so touching that I got the answer I know was it became who was right and who was wrong? Was I right? Was she right? Was I wrong? Was she wrong? And in a way for me, it was God letting me know that it happened for a reason, but maybe him taking part of the blame in a way. And again, I'm not saying it's God's fault, but I felt like he was being accountable for what happened. That was what that "I know" statement felt like, is that he's aware of what happened. He knows the pain that came from it, and that he still loves me, but he knows that it really, really hurt me. And it just helped me to move on. And ever since then, I'm still not perfect to go. I will always struggle to want to go to church.
Talk about, is there anything more you want to talk about with that relationship and the learning and the things you'd say to other people that are ending difficult relationships with people getting different answers?
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, when you have two different answers, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. I don't know if I'll ever know why two people got two different answers from the same God. I just try to have faith, remember that he still has a plan for me. You know, I'm not supposed to be alive, honestly.
Right.
So he has big things for me in store. And so I think that he just loves all of his children, and he wants us to have the life that we want. And so I always fall back on that as, okay, there's got to be someone better then. If Heavenly Father knew that I was going to go through all this emotional pain with relationships and dating specifically, he's got to be holding out someone pretty great for me. And he knows I'm not going to settle, so she's going to be great.
I love that, and that's full of hope. And I know we've talked about this, and I can't remember if I've told our listeners, but sometimes one of the, I would call it a sacred experience, is when you would meet with a YSA, their last visit as you're writing out their marriage temple recommend. And sometimes those YSAs I know for a couple of years and know some of their prior relationships, and we'd kind of just sit and look back on some of those really painful experiences, and often all those different puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit together as now they were going to the temple with their eternal partner sort of made sense. I think that's the vision of impressionistic painting that Elder Uchtdorf talks about, is it's hard to see all those dots. But sometimes when we have these pivot moments in our life, like we're getting married, we can look back on all these chapters you've gone through, and then there's context, and all the impressionistic dots make sense. And I think that's the hope. You're not there yet. You're not having that moment. So this is part of this podcast. It's an unfinished story. And we're not going to now talk about Ryan's fallen in love with somebody and how, because he hasn't. Have you?
No, I pretty much just love myself. That's all I have.
And that's great. What probability do you give you'll be married?
That I will get married eventually? 100.
So that's still there.
That's still there. It's just not happening when I thought.
And it's still something you're working towards, and it's a desire of your heart. You're not now closed off to this road.
Absolutely.
Because it's been so painful.
The easy road would be to shut down and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. But what's the point of that? You're just not going to try.
You buy a home and you just live your life. And
you got to keep trying. And so that's why I focus
leaning into the pain.
Exactly. Lean into the pain and focus on what you can control and have faith that God will do the rest. That's kind of what I'm doing right now.
That's great. I have no more advice for you than that. That's great. I think it's helpful for everybody. One of the things I like about this podcast, Ryan, is you sharing that experience, give people principles for all sorts of experiences. So not everybody's gone through what you have with these girlfriend situations, but people have gone through really difficult stuff. And even where they feel let down by God. And that is a difficult thing to reconcile. And I love how you've reconciled that and continue to believe in God and continue to have faith in the church. Now, I want to talk in our last segment, just because so many YSAs have a hard time at church.
Yeah.
And here you are, a believing member of the church. You hold the temple recommend. You want to get married in the temple, but you don't like going to church.
No, not
and
at
so
all.
Those are things that 5 years ago I thought I can't understand how anybody can say something.
Yeah.
So just help our listeners know why that's hard for you. And because in what I'm trying to get to here is what we can do better. And if you feel the way Ryan does, to feel you're not alone.
For sure. So I'll start out with just a very basic testimony that I have. I'm not a person who gets up and says, I know the church is true. I know this happened. I know this and that. I don't know. I just have never had that knowing. I hope the church is true. I believe the church is true. I really hope that these things are true, that what I believe in is true, but I don't know. And I don't think that the one that I truly struggle with, and it's okay if other people do, is I don't think this is the one and only true church. I think Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ are so happy of all their children who are in different religions that are trying to come closer to God. So that's something I've always really struggled with, is this is the one and only true church, because I don't know that, and I actually don't believe that.
Do you feel it is for you?
I feel it is for me. That's what's key, is I feel that it works for me.
Okay.
And just like being a Muslim works for the Muslim person, like to each their own. As long as you're trying to come closer to God and it works for you, that's what's important. And it's okay if you don't think the cookie cutter mindset of being LDS. Like, I know the church is true. I know Joseph Smith is a prophet. All those things that we hear in church that people just recycle in testimony meeting, it's totally okay if you don't have that knowledge, because trust me, there's a lot of people who don't. And so that's just how I feel. I feel like there's so many great people. My struggle with going to church has to kind of do.
Have you borne a testimony in church to that effect about your testimony?
I have. About a year ago, I actually credited Dicko here before I got up, because you challenged me for 6 months. You wanted me to bear my testimony in that way, and I finally got up and said, all right, my good mentor, Dick Osler's challenged me to do this. And I got up and I said, I don't know the church is true. I hope it's true. It works for me. I want to make it work, but I struggle to come to church. This is really hard for me to do, but I'm going to do the best I can. And then to get into what I think more you were going to talk about,
did people come up to you afterwards and thank you for that?
A few did. People just said, thanks for being honest. I'm just an honest person.
Good.
The thing with the church and me, for why I stay in and don't leave it, is I realize it's temporarily just not working for me right now, where I'm single, I'm 26, so I'm not super young, where I'm fresh from my mission and going to college as an undergrad, where I'm surrounded by tons of people my same age. And I think the LDS church is really focused around families. And so I've realized that it worked for me when I was, a teenager and a kid growing up. It's not working for me right now, but
even though you're in a singles ward,
even though I'm in a singles ward, but it's going to work for me when I'm married and have a family. Like, I totally believe that.
So what do you do to kind of stay engaged? Do you go to church regularly or not?
Yeah. So we joke about this. I'm like a Duke basketball player. I do a one and done usually, where I go to sacrament meeting, but the 2-hour church is a game changer. That's definitely helped. Where I'm not perfect. I still don't go every week to all 2 hours, and I do miss sacrament meeting here and there, because there's just some days I can't do it. I just don't want to. But just get there and try to do it the best you can. Just do the best you can. And so that's kind of the approach I've taken.
What's the best thing a local leader could say to you if you were in their ward?
Just that it's what you say to me, Dicko. Just, I welcome you and say, just keep doing what you can do. And we just want to see you here, and you're always welcome. But I'm not going to pressure you and force you to, have a calling. And
why would you not really want a calling?
I'm just not that person who identifies with my religion. I don't live, breathe, eat, sleep church. I just
would you accept a calling if the bishop gave you a calling? It
depends what it is. But if he was like, yeah, I want you to be a teacher, I'd say, like, yeah, this is not going to happen, man. I'm trying to get to 1 hour regardless. So
you'd be that honest.
You know me. I'll
it's
definitely
okay
be
to
that
be
honest.
That honest.
I definitely think about it for sure, but I don't think it's good to like give callings to people if their heart isn't in it and they don't want to either.
Why?
Oh, if your heart isn't into something, then you're not giving a full effort. So I feel like if my heart isn't into something, it's not going to be as productive as someone else who could do it and actually wants to do it. It would just be better for them and for the people who are there around.
Yeah. Um, I have certainly tried to understand why believing members of our church have a hard time with church and at your age group, and it's helpful to listen to you. And I think the principle I believe in now, after talking to so many, is creating space. That church should be a safe place for everybody, unless they're yelling at the speaker, to feel like they belong. Belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are, to quote Brene Brown. Fitting in is assessing a situation and becoming something we aren't really are just to fit in. And you're not very good at fitting in because you have a confidence in you. You don't need to become something you're not. And I think that's part of your God-given attributes. And I think for our listeners, that you're an example of just, this is who I am. And we all need to repent and improve. And so it's not about that, but it's just, we all have different gifts.
Yeah.
And so I love creating space for people to be in their differences, to feel like they belong in our congregations, and their differences are honored and valued and celebrated. And I think of Elder Holland's choir. Elder Holland's choir has all these different parts. We're not just all altos. So you are, I don't know what part of the choir you are, but you're different from other parts of the choir, but it creates the harmony that I think is needed. And if we just have one part, the altos just fit in our congregations, and we lose the other three parts, then I don't think that's what God wants us to be. So I think we can improve as a culture and create space for people to just process our faith differently, because I look behind you and some of our listeners and behind you is someone doing the very best you can to come unto Christ and to do the very best you can to improve yourself and help others. And that is the purpose of religion.
Right.
And so to me, then we've got to look at our church experiences. How is it helping me be a better disciple of Christ and improving myself and blessing others? So other thoughts you'd say to those that have a testimony of our church or hope or believe that have a hard time with their Sunday experience, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, it's kind of what I said before. Just do what you can do. If you come up a little short, it's okay, but that's better than not doing anything at all. Just do what you can do and focus on the long-term goal, and just rely on your faith, and know that if you're at a tough time right now, just have hope that things will get better.
Talk about your feelings about dating. Are you dating now?
Yeah, I've never stopped, really. I mean, obviously I'll take breaks. Still going on dates. It is tough. I truly think it's really tough in this social media age to date.
Tell the Instagram story.
The Instagram story.
Where you were scrolling Instagram, but it fell on your face, and you.
Oh, this is with that girl with the emotional cheating.
I just remember how funny it was.
She's yeah. So she's happily married, 2 kids now, but it's probably a year ago when she had her first kid. I heard she had a kid, and I want to see if the baby was cute or ugly.
That's
I'm
honest.
gonna be honest. So I looked at her Instagram, which was not private, and it was probably like midnight, and I'm just scrolling with my phone above my head in bed. I dropped my phone on my face like we all have. My nose hits the follow button, and I have been following her ever since.
I love that story. That's just a great story.
It's karma. That's God just laughing at me saying, yeah, that's why you don't stalk out your exes.
So that's just an honest, great story. Thanks for joining us, Ryan, and just having the courage to be real and honest and authentic and share your story. I think it's what creates authentic connections, as we're able to just be honest and vulnerable. And I think that makes us have the needed connections we need versus the perfectionist culture that we're trying to get beyond. You have not been the perfect perfectionist in this podcast. You've been pretty open with the difficult things you've gone through, and also talking about your faith and how you continue to hold your faith and continue to have hope in your future. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
No, just thank you for having me. Dicko, as I call him, Papa Osler, I'd say he's a huge reason as why I'm still in the church, for sure. He's helped me stay active. He's guided me through some difficult times, stuff we haven't even touched on. So Dicko, I'm very grateful for you and the change you're trying to make to help all these people. And I know that you are affecting everyone listening. So thank you for your time that you always give to do this.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. You're a dear friend, Ryan. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to seeing the rest of your chapters of your life. Thank you, our listeners, for joining us on another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love.